the last round of Ghost in the Graveyard, I'm squaring up, and there's this guy running directly at me, and he cuts to my right. And I'm in like a basketball stance because I grew up playing basketball. So I'm like, I'm ready, right? He cuts. I go right with him. I ran face first into a mailbox, like the face of a mailbox. I'm talking, my face is bleeding. Like I have a bloody nose and more pain than you can possibly imagine.
Welcome to another episode of Money Therapy.
We're back, baby. Everything going smoothly here in
curating this conversation. My name's Brandon Chasteen, and this...
I'm Bill McGill.
And we're excited to talk to you about stuff today, what we have. So
lots of stuff.
If you've been listening to the past couple episodes, you know that the theme is really just on the topic of being coachable. And that is what this episode is it's being coachable and how to deal with blind spots, obviously in life, but specifically in our investments. That is what we're going to be talking about today. So let's just start with blind spots.
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah.
I got a secret for you.
Okay.
Profound. A blind spot.
Secrets 2 weeks in a row. Okay.
A blind spot is you can't see them.
Okay. It's amazing.
That's it. We all have blind spots, and just simply by the definition of what they are, you cannot see them.
Right.
And that's it. And if we can just accept that reality and truth, the outcome of this episode is a success.
Yeah.
Right. But let's kind of just jump into like what is truly tragic about this conversation, this idea that we all have blind spots, we don't see them. The truly tragic piece is other people can oftentimes see our blind spots that we don't see.
It's true,
and we don't like it when people tell us our blind spots.
Yeah,
we reject oftentimes and sometimes get offended when people point out something that we might have missed.
Yeah. Or embarrassed or shy about it, something like that.
Just largely uncoachable.
Yeah.
If you tell me, like if I have this, this happened to me just the other day. Man, like in pre-show, I thought of like 6 things. But I'm also just sitting here and I'm like, just the other day, somebody was like telling me something about an endeavor that I'm something I'm trying to accomplish. And they were like, well, what about this, and what about this? And I'm just like, shame on you. Like, who are you to critique my vision?
Was it me?
No, it wasn't you.
Damn.
But like in pre-show, I mentioned this and it's true. Like probably the person that has a ton of perspective, a wonderful vantage point to see my life from a different place than I see my life is my mother.
Yeah.
And I don't take advice or criticism from mom very well. And I love my mother.
Yeah.
But man, mothers can, like I'm the firstborn.
Moms can be a problem, man.
They can be a little overwhelming sometimes. And it's just like, Mom, like just leave me alone for a minute here. You don't have to tell me all the things, right?
Yeah.
Like walking into my mom's house and she's like, you just look tired. I'm like, shame on you. Don't say that. I feel great.
Yeah. I look fantastic, Mom.
But I think that sometimes we get very uncoachable with dealing with these blind spots. Not only do we we cannot see them, but not only do we have the inability to see them, we also want to not acknowledge their existence.
Yeah.
Because it makes us feel like we didn't have the ability to see things clearly, think through things, well, or we're just, it almost just is like maybe a perceived as like a weakness.
Yeah.
Right. So I think back to like moments in my life and getting like getting these feedback, getting this the kind of this nudge that, hey, you have this blind spot. And like, I think back to the people. So first of all, when you want to tell somebody that you're seeing something that maybe they have missed, I think about two different types of people, right? I think about some people that are way like overly involved in other people's business. They're nosy. They're not invited to give that feedback, but they impose it anyway, and that tends to create like a bit of a wall. Like, we don't want to hear it because, like, why are you prying into my stuff? I didn't ask you for it.
Yeah.
But then there's other people, there's friends that are very close to us, family that's very close to us.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it takes a ton of courage in those circumstances to like tell a friend or a brother or a son or daughter, hey, like, I know you're putting everything into this, but have you considered this? Because one, it takes courage because we want to see these people we love and care for succeed.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to think that we're only seeing them in light of possible failure.
Right.
Like, we can still be championing you. Like, I can still champion you in your endeavors, but also be warning you, hey, I'm seeing this. Have you considered it?
Yeah.
So I think on one hand, we can talk ourselves out of telling people that they have blind spots.
Yeah.
And when we work up the courage to do it, sometimes it can be misconstrued as, oh, you think I'm going to fail, and we get defensive and we don't receive it.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that are just nosy, and it's not courage because they're excited to tell you about how you're going to fail. And those are like the friends that you don't want to have, right?
Yeah.
And we all have people in our life that are eager almost to tell us how we're going to fail at whatever we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? What's your thoughts?
Well, a couple thoughts I have, when you were speaking was sometimes I do struggle with that as a financial advisor with friends and family and with close clients too. People who have been with me for years and years, that I truly, truly care about. Sometimes you have to separate yourself and, I don't want to say let people make mistakes, but sometimes you have to separate the conversation and as a professional on the other side of the table, ask yourself, okay, what are they actually asking me for advice on? And
Right.
that you may, as a financial professional, see somebody that you care about making what you know to be a financial mistake.
Yep.
But in an effort to not be nosy or overbearing or getting into business that may not be your business, sometimes you have to ask yourself, okay, what are they actually asking for advice on? And that's just where, that's where my mind went, number one. And then number two, I look introspectively, and sometimes people in the right way reach out and try and redirect me. And my dad comes to mind first. And sometimes I just blow right by it, whatever advice it is, and it could be, great advice. But we all have, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think we all have tendencies sometimes to blow right by that. And then for me, it usually ends up in physical pain.
Yeah.
At least when I was growing up as a kid, because he'd say, hey, don't go do that. And I'd just, yeah, whatever, Dad. And I'd run, so it's good to, have some grace with other people and go, okay, when I'm looking at somebody else and I can see all their blind spots or I think I can, they're probably thinking the same thing about you. And so I think, we could get into approaches and things like that, but, just realizing everybody's not perfect is number one. And I think that begins with humility. And then that gives you an opportunity to possibly see some of your own blind spots and gives you the opportunity to reach out to other people and say, hey, what do you see? What do you see in me? One of the, I got one story and then I could tell a funny story, but the one story that comes to mind was, we did an exercise in high school, which was go hang out with your best friend and ask them two questions. Ask them, number one, if you're an animal, what animal are you? According to your best friend, you can't say anything.
Okay.
Mine immediately said golden retriever. he, he goes, you love everybody. You get excited to see everybody when they walk through the door. And if there's a ball involved, like basketball, baseball, anything, you get real excited. He's like, and you're loyal as all get out. Like, you're a golden retriever. And I go, all right. And I said, well, I, maybe laugh. And I said, well, okay, what do you see me doing? The second question, what do you see me doing as a profession? And we're in high school trying to figure out where we're going to go from there. And he said, honestly, I can see you in an office running your own business. And to me, the thought about being in an office was medieval torture to me. I was like, I'm going to be outside in the mountains somewhere, or, I had all these ideas of what I wanted and where I thought it was going to go. And look at me, I'm in an office running my own business. Yeah. so, and that's one example, just flying right by it. Like, oh, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. And God, he nailed it.
Yeah, that's pretty good insight for a high school kid, for sure.
Yeah. And then the funny story is my dad one time, I think I was like 13 or 14, and we were going to go on a hiking trip. And it's the night before the hiking trip. And I'm rushing to get outside to go play Ghost in the Graveyard with my friends. If you've never played Ghost in the Graveyard,
best game ever.
Basically, we had this cul-de-sac in the neighborhood. That was the base.
Yeah.
And so, the other people were running away, and I'm the ghost in the graveyard trying to tag people. But so I'm all excited. I'm heading out the door, and the last thing my dad, he goes, "Hey," because I get all excited, and then I just start running, right, and all kinds of energy. And he goes, "Hey, slow down. Don't get hurt. We're going on a hiking trip. We're going on vacation. Do not get hurt." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, no problem. I'm not going to get hurt. No worries. Run outside." The last round of Ghost in the Graveyard, I'm squaring up, and there's this guy running directly at me, and he cuts to my right, and I'm in like a basketball stance because I grew up playing basketball, so I'm like, I'm ready, right? He cuts. I go right with him. I ran face first into a mailbox, like the face of a mailbox. I'm talking, my face is bleeding. Like, I have a bloody nose and more pain than you can possibly imagine. So I get all cleaned up, and we try to do another round. And now I'm the one running towards the cul-de-sac. And I take off to the left. I've recouped, right? I'm back. And I take off left, and I flatten one of those, like, whoever for president signs in the lawn. Never saw it coming, right? Cut my shins up. I'm laying flat in the yard in total pain. And to what you said, sometimes when people are right, you don't want to admit it. So I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm so beat up. Like, I can't tell my dad. I can't let him know. And so my face is all cut up and everything. And, so I'm like hiding from him for a while. And I'm trying, like, anytime we pass each other in the hallway, I'm kind of ducking into another room, and we go on this trip, and later on in the day, we're sitting in the airport, and my dad's reading a book, and he looks over at me, looks at me again. He goes, "What in the world happened to your face?" And then obviously it all came out, but yeah, I just ran right by the advice. No problem, Dad. And then I got my butt kicked,
So one point of clarification I think is important is if you have never played Ghost in the Graveyard. Oh, yes. It is a game at night. So Bill is not that
literally blind spots.
Yeah, it's actually quite literal.
They were still, the obstacles that I ran into that day were still pretty obvious, though. I mean, all the other kids were able to avoid them.
I think that a couple big takeaways, because I'm thinking back to moments in my life where somebody was like, "Hey, have you considered this?" And first and foremost, some of them I had considered. So they weren't truthfully blind spots. They're just people looking out for my well-being.
Yeah.
But there were times whenever somebody pointed something out, and, I kind of just assumed the risk. Mm-hmm. So they were like, "Hey, Brandon, have you thought about that?" No, I really haven't, but that still doesn't change what I want to accomplish. And so it's okay. It's completely okay to just be made aware of things and still assume risk. We do this all the time. Like, there's no way to kind of ensure every facet or every possible risk in our life.
Right.
We assume some, right? Like, if there's something that could cause like extreme tragedy, like death, we typically want to insure against that.
Yeah.
Especially if it happens somewhat frequently. Another thing is if maybe it doesn't impose super high end tragic, but it happens consistently, we might want to insure against that. So, like, for example, you know, me getting in a vehicle accident and having to go to the hospital. That could happen, and vehicle accidents happen all the time. So that would be, and I would want insurance, and I'd want to make sure that insurance would take care of me if I became like disabled or things like that, right? On the flip side, my refrigerator doesn't break all the time, but it could. In getting like insurance on a product like a refrigerator, it's very, very cheap, and you can get that for several years at a time, right? So in that sense, it might be something because it's so cheap, I'll just go ahead and insure it, right? On the flip side, it's super catastrophic, so I'll pay more money for vehicle insurance to cover my life and my car. The point of that is to say, like, sometimes somebody like Bill, I could say, hey, I want to accomplish this, and you could be like, hey, well, I would really consider this. I'm like, man, I hadn't considered that. That was a blind spot. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Still going to proceed. I just know that there's a risk now that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
Can I mitigate or avoid that risk? Is there a possibility? Sometimes there is. Sometimes there is not. So it might just be we're just going to assume that risk, right? The biggest thing that I want to point out in this is when people offer you something that is like they're letting you know that you have a potential blind spot.
Yeah.
First of all, accept it and be thankful for it. Think about it and be warm and receptive. You don't want to burn the bridges of people that are trying to offer you a clearer vision of your path in life. Because if you bite those hands too frequently, they're going to stop extending that, and then you're just going to be stuck with absolute true blind spots.
Yeah.
And nobody to like give you a heads up.
Yeah.
So don't run away from the feedback of people who can see your blind spots. Listen when you get it, and treat it like gold when it shows up. So you just truly want to appreciate. Bill, if I was telling you that I was going to do something, and instead of being like, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know me, you don't know. But instead I was like, Bill, wow. Like, first of all, thanks for saying that. Like, I'm sure that took a lot of courage, and you're trying to figure out for 2 days how to say that because you know how important this is to me. So super grateful to have a friend like you that can see that. I'm so glad we have a relationship that we're close enough that you could have the kind of empathy to put yourself in my position and see what I couldn't see.
Yeah.
I'd love to have another conversation about it after I have some time to process that, because I truly had never considered that. You want to treat it like it's just precious metal, precious gold.
Sure.
Don't be defensive. Like, it's okay to have blind spots. We all have them. So it's okay to have them, and you don't have to get defensive. It doesn't mean they're doubting you. It doesn't mean they want to see you fail. It doesn't mean that they're not championing you. It just means, hey, I was actually envisioning your success, and I just thought, oh man, I wonder if he's thought of this, because my brain went there. Maybe yours didn't.
I think that's an important point. I think sometimes when someone points something like that out to you, you can feel almost, maybe that they think you're not smart, or maybe you think, like, oh man, I was too stupid to see this. This is why this person's telling me. But kind of what you said, we all need to be recalibrated every once in a while, 100%. And we need that. Hey, watch out for this, dude. I stepped in that hole 5 years ago. And you're wasting your time over there. Just course and I think there's a lot of people out there just trying to help everybody else. If you got good people in your life, surround yourself with those people that you can have those conversations with, and that that when they're telling you something like that, they've got your best interest at heart. And then you can have that honest conversation. And sometimes even with my best friend, I've been like, dude, you're an idiot. And it's probably not the best way to say it, but hey man, think about this, and he's done the same for me. Like, dude, you're being idiot.
Yeah, it's so
And
important. I think
those conversations are gold. They
pure
are.
gold. And you know, people do not hire a coach because they're stupid.
Right.
You don't hire a coach because you absolutely have to have the help with money or business or being like there's creativity coaches, sport professionals have coaches. Like none of these people get coaches because they're stupid.
Yeah.
They get coaches because that coach is not them,
Yeah.
right? Michael Jordan, at the end of a long career, did not need a fitness coach.
Right.
Like he didn't, or I shouldn't say, he did not need a fitness coach because he was stupid. He had been exercising and becoming the best in his sport and his craft that ever existed. He knows how to get in shape for a game.
Yeah.
But he also just had a coach because the coach's brain was not his.
And spoiler alert, he's better at basketball than the coach was.
And
You know, but
he
he still
doesn't
needs a coach.
He didn't need it because he didn't know how to put together a workout routine to be fit. He needed it because he just might miss something because it's just one brain. And we could go on and on about examples of great people hiring coaches.
Yeah.
I do financial planning every single day.
Right.
I know the ins and outs of CFP study books and how to put together graphs and charts and what numbers matter. I know how to funnel money from, A, B, and C into X, Y, and Z. I know how to do all these things and be successful.
Sure.
Do you think I manage my own money just completely by myself? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know that as much as I know, it's still my money and my brain. I value tremendously somebody else being able to say, "Hey, have you thought about this?"
Yeah.
And at this level, like at a level of my knowledge about financial planning,
Yeah.
it's not like I go in blind to an office. It's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
I'll put together a strategy for something I'm trying to accomplish. And then I'll go to that other professional and say, "Hey man, thinking about trying to accomplish this. Here's my thoughts on paper. Can you take a look at it and let me know what you're thinking?"
Yeah.
And there's been times where that paperwork has come back. I'm like, "That's brilliant. I'd do the same thing." And
Yeah.
then there's been times where like, "You're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, you're about to make this huge mistake."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Man, I didn't even see that anywhere in the cards."
Yeah. And one of the things that I wrote down in pre-show notes that you just totally highlighted there, it's one of the advantages to being a student of the game.
Yeah.
You're viewed as a professional. You're a CFP, certified financial planner. I don't expect anyone out there to know what a CFP is, but it's an incredibly hard designation to get. You got to study for people study for a year and a half to take that test, and you're a professional, but you're still willing to go get advice from somebody else, and because you know that if you're right and they tell you you're right, awesome. But what you value more is critique and feedback, because then you can, at the very least, you'll learn something.
Yeah,
You'll learn something about perspective. You'll learn something maybe that you haven't thought of, but you value that interaction. And I think that humility and being able to be a student of the game is part, it can lead to being a buffer. If we can all accept that we have these blind spots, my mind immediately went to, well, how do we mitigate against blind spots, right? We would all love to have no blind spots. In my opinion, life would be pretty boring, right? But that's where my head went. What can I do to mitigate against these things? Being a student of the game is one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, the mitigation is to have somebody else helping you think through it.
Yeah. Being humble enough to go, I probably don't see everything that's here.
And it's not all humility, right? Like you can have, like if you're listening to this podcast constantly, like we have those education calls that we offer monthly. Like there's ways that you can gain a vast amount of knowledge. And I would argue that some of you guys that are listening through all these calls and on my education calls, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. You guys might be more financially savvy than some people claiming to be financial professionals.
Probably.
Quite candidly, like there are some real dummies out there doing this job or presenting that they're doing a job and they're not.
Yeah.
So that being said, like when I take these like financial thoughts or investment ideas to like my financial planner, I'm trying to look really, really smart.
Yeah.
And he's trying so hard to pick it apart. And when he finds a way to pick it apart, he's so proud of himself.
Yeah.
But I also, it's a reciprocal job, right? Like I do the same thing for him.
Sure.
So he'll bring me some portfolio analysis or some decision, some real estate investment, whatever he's wanting to do.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited when I get to just mark it all up with red ink and be like, you kind of are dumb.
Yeah.
You know, not really. Like we have fun with it. But if you're out there and you're becoming savvy, you're listening to this podcast, you're on these education calls, you got the financial planning app, you want to hire somebody, like you should go in and be like, hey, I'm excited to tell you my plan. And I hope you can see things, but just in case you can't, it's because I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of have some fun with it. Like have fun. If there's somebody you can mentor in your life, it's okay to make this like, it's okay to have fun. We need to learn how to be less defensive.
Yeah.
We are human beings.
Yeah.
And we are not these like super efficient computer machines that the world tells us we need to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're really good at some things and we're not so great at other things. Sometimes we're really good at some things, so it causes us to do things dumb. Like I think, you know, just to that Michael Jordan analogy, like he was really good at playing basketball.
Yeah.
He was really, really good at playing basketball.
Yeah.
Probably to the point where he knew how important it was for him to be on the court.
Yeah.
So how many times did he decide to play with like a bum knee or a bum ankle? And somebody had to be a part of his world to be like, Michael, you got to stop.
Yeah.
You got to sit down, because if you play one more game like this, you're never going to play basketball again.
Yeah.
But I know how to rehab. This is my expert field. So if I can just get you off your feet for about four weeks,
Yeah.
I'll have you back to being healthier than you've been in 10 years.
Right.
So I think that it's just important to surround ourselves with people and enjoy feedback and enjoy criticism and enjoy, like I said, accept it like it's just rare gold.
Yeah.
When people come at you and give you feedback on blind spots.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better.
Cool. That's it for the week. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy it. And
watch out for those mailboxes.
Just be eager to give some people advice and don't sprint in the dark.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Bye.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.